Good.
Yes.
Yeah, someone started recording now.
I did it. Yeah.
Okay,
Great.
so then you can just share afterwards.
Yeah.
That's great.
Perfect.
Okay, I'll just find the files. I'm sorry.
While you're looking for files, I could tell people there that I finally got in contact with the people at Cambio, and will get access to their Swedish translations also. And they also have a student project where they have started translating some archetypes. So we'll share that link also.
Awesome.
We'll upload it on the wiki page once this meeting is finished.
Okay, that's good news. Interesting to see that maybe they have even more detailed translations than the ones we have at the moment. So.
Okay, I'll share my screen now. Hopefully that'll work. So if anyone within a few seconds cannot see my screen, hopefully you will, but
Now we can see.
okay, so there's no one who can't see my screen. Good. Okay, so I know that sometimes Link is a bit slow in updating the picture, so I'll try to go slow. So this is the international CKM. Some of you might have noticed that the dashboard has changed a lot within the last couple of weeks. It's become, at least the way we see it, a lot more usable. So that's this is the layout for an editor. It's a little bit different for people who are just normal logged in users, and there's a separate one for non-logged in users as well. I think the biggest new thing is probably the news section, which gives a much better overview of what's going on in the CKM at the moment. So the latest news now is, of course, that we published the medication order archetype yesterday, and that's we actually should have had champagne for that, because that's a pretty huge thing, at least the way I see it. It's been in the works for a long time. So let's get on to the practical stuff. So we've got a couple of different archetypes here. I guess we could just use the symptom sign as an example, because I'm pretty sure that doesn't have a Swedish or Finnish translation. That's a cluster archetype, and I can find it here on the left-hand side. There. When I open an archetype like this, I get the possibility of looking at the history of the archetype, which is where we do a lot of the operations relating to translations and uploading new versions and a lot of other things as well. And as you can see, this archetype is in revision 20, and it's the published version 100. Previously, from revision 19 and back, it was 001 alpha, which is the version number for all of the non-published archetypes. And of course, at least those of you who are in software development, you know that alpha means that something is really unstable, and that's the same for archetypes. We often change our alpha archetypes a lot, so it's probably not a good idea to at least start with those when you're doing translation. Start with the ones that are published, because then we have a really tight regime for change management in place for those, which we don't have at all for the 001 alpha ones. And you can see they're published by the green tick next to the archetype in the list here, and also up here in the open archetype. You can also see here that there's a branch here made by a guy called Vladimir Piso. He works in a hospital in Sao Paulo called the Syrio-Libanese, and he does a lot of translations into Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese. So you can see there here that he and this person, Osmer Sansova, has done a collaborative. Actually, those are two separate branches. So that's an interesting case where if I have, so you have two active branches, one started by Vladimir and another one here started by Osmer, and they're both translations into Brazilian Portuguese, which is quite interesting, situation, and one which we really like to.
Yeah. Is it possible to merge these branches? Or?
Well, it's possible to merge them, but the translations you have to choose either or. You can't do an automatic merge of the translations. If you have one branch without a translation,
compare.
And yes, you can do that. You can compare them. But if you have one branch with a translation and one branch without it, it's very easy to merge the translation into the other one. But you can't do an automatic merge of the translations because, of course, the computer doesn't know what's best saying, etc.
But with a manual help, it's possible.
Yes, you can do the compare, and then you can. I'll just show you that. If I select the latest version of Vladimir's branch, and I'll select the latest version on Osmer's branch, and I go all the way to the top and choose compare archetypes here. Then I'll get a diff between these. So you can see that there's quite large differences between them. And I think in a case like this, where probably they've both done a more or less complete translation of the entire archetype, it's what the best thing you can do is just have a read through. And if one is significantly better than the other, just choose that one. If not, I don't know, it probably doesn't matter that much if they're not significantly different. But that's probably the best way of doing it, just have a read through and see which one is best. So if we want to upload a third branch with a Swedish and Finnish translation, what we do is, and this is the thing that you need a special permission to do, a translator permission, and we give that out to more or less anyone who wants it. But you'll need to ask for it. And you just press details and go on to translate archetype. And what happens then is that you start a new branch and you start a new translation. And but if you already started translating, or you have a partially or complete translation in an ADL file, which is here, it's probably better to upload your translation and then work from that. So that's what we're going to do now. So then I would go on to, yeah.
Hello, by the way, I'm Baby. Do you recommend to make a new active branch for each language to be translated?
That is a good question. It's probably a good thing unless you're planning to commit at once, and you can only do that if you're an editor to keep the translation branches separate, just to make it tidier. It's perfectly possible for the editor to merge the different translation branches into one at a later point, as long as they're not the same language. So if we'll have one translation branch for Swedish and one for Finnish and one for Portuguese, we can merge those easily. That's not a problem at all. So I'd recommend making a new branch.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can make a branch manually by checking out the archetype. Or if you try to do something that requires the archetype to have a new branch, you can just do whatever, press the upload translation, for instance, and you'll be prompted to check out the archetype. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I press upload translation, and then I have to choose a local archetype file, which I put here, and this is symptom sign. And then I start archetype upload, And then it says, I haven't checked this out, but it has been checked out by 2 other users already. So here it says, basically, do you want to check it out all over in a separate branch, or do you want to go back and have a look at what the other people have done? But I want a separate one now, so that's what I'm going to do. So press checkout, and then it just does that in the background.
Just remember, there's a lag here before we can see what you're doing, Celia.
Sorry.
You're too quick, you know.
It's a bit slow. So thankfully there's a lag within the CKM as well.
That's done on purpose, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah, it's done for this particular situation then. Specifically. Okay, so then I get to a new dialog that prompts me to select the language that I want to upload the translation of. And what this does is to take one of the translations in the file and strip everything else from the file and just upload that translation. So what do we want? Do we want Finnish or Swedish? Anyone?
Swedish.
Okay, so let's select Swedish. And what happens here is that it gives an overview of the translation that we've chosen. And it says that some details, such as purpose, use, misuse, are not translated at all. Purpose, use, misuse are not translated. Basically, all of the elements are not translated. That's what it seems like, at least. At least a lot of them are not translated. But that's okay if we choose Finnish, we can see what's okay. So that's the same situation basically.
Yeah, basically only the field labels have been translated, but not the descriptions.
Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
That's
So if we just choose Swedish then, and we go to the bottom, and we'd like to. The log message is fine, translated archetype from English to Swedish. That's pretty good. And we'll upload, and we'll just close this tab because we want to go back to the history view. So I'll just press finalize upload of archetypes translation. So then I get an overview of what's been done, and that's and what happens here now is that in addition to the 2 branches that were here already, the one from Vladimir and the one from Asmir, I've got one that I made, which for the first one is just a checkout thing, and then the second one is the upload. So now we've uploaded the partial translation into Swedish. And of course, before we fold this in as a translation of the archetype, we want to complete it. So what we do then is to click the details again. And then we choose Translate Archetype. And then we choose whichever language we want, not Serbian, Swedish. And when we choose a language that's already in the archetype, it says edit existing translation. But if we choose another one, it says translate archetype. And as you can see, Swedish and Swedish Finland are 2 separate languages apparently in this value set. I don't know how real that is, but let's just choose Swedish for now. And then I get into a view where I can see all the elements in the archetype. And I can see who's the translator. And I can click all of the elements that I want to translate. And I can see the original English text. And I can put in my Swedish text here. And this will always be the original language of the archetype, whichever that is. Most of the archetypes in the international CKM have English as the original language, while a few have Portuguese and a few have Spanish. And that's something we want to avoid. We want to have archetypes with English as the original language to make it easier for people who don't know whichever language is the original, alternative or original, such as Portuguese. So we allow those people to translate it into their language as well. So we don't limit that too much.
A question to you.
Yes, of course.
Somehow, are there any benefits by doing the translations and then uploading them when you have access to the CKM? Or should you always be doing the translations here in the CKM?
I think the functionality of translating is a lot better in the CKM than it is in the archetype editor. So I actually recommend doing it here in the CKM. It's so much easier.
So what we would do would be uploading the work that Tiet have done and that can be done, and then we just work from there.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
Good. Thanks.
Good, Selena?
Yes. Yeah.
In the future, sometime, it should be possible to choose a different language to translate from. If we could think of a Swedish translation of this into from English to Swedish, and then if we could choose the Swedish version and then translate that in the lower part where your cursor is now, and write the Norwegian translation there. That would be a nice feature.
It would probably be a nice feature.
I think it sounds a little scary to translate the translation.
Yes.
Then you might get a bit far from the original. If you're unlucky.
Yes, that's the risk of Chinese whispers, where if you translate the translation of a translation of a translation, then how do you know that you're actually your semantics is the same as the original one if you don't know the original language?
Yeah, so I tried to start translating the pulse archetype.
Yeah.
And then I looked at the Norwegian translation and at the original English one. And I saw that I didn't interpret the English version in the same way as you did.
Really?
Norwegian.
That's interesting.
I saw several places where I think it was ambiguous. So I was about to ask you about that, but we can take that separately.
Yeah, that would be very interesting.
Some parts of sentences where it's not possible to know which part of the sentence that belongs to and or. And
Yeah, okay.
Logical stuff.
We'd definitely like to hear about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's definitely a risk if you start translating the translations.
But I see that, but if you can choose the original English and the Swedish and the Danish and the Portuguese in different panels there, and then you have your own translation, that would be a way of mitigate that risk of translating on the translation. But
we could probably request such a feature that you can choose some other languages to view, but you should see the original all the time.
Yep.
Also.
Yeah, the original.
You can always open the CKM in several tabs or in several web browsers, and you can look at as many languages at the same time as you like.
That is true. Yeah. If we wanted such a feature, we'd probably have to request it and pay for it, because I don't think it's a development priority for Ocean. But if we really want it, we can probably get it if we have the money to pay.
Let's go on with the demo.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So this is you basically translate every element here, and the ones that are in bold are the ones that aren't translated already. So you can see if we have a look at description. Actually, it has a translation here, and they removed the little asterisk here, but they haven't translated it. So that's the thing that makes it bold here. Is that there is at least one of the elements have an asterisk, which means that it's untranslated. So if I go back to description here and reinsert the asterisk, it turns bold. So it's not a good idea to remove this unless you're done with that element. Of course, if you're unsure about something, that's a good way to mark that particular element. If, for instance, you want your colleague to go back to the translation and have a look at something, it's a good idea to mark which element it was that you wanted them to have a look at. So basically, you do your translations, you go through each element. You can either just use this tree and click each element, or you can use the next button here, and it will take you directly onto the next one in the list. So that's what you do, and when you can save as many times as you like while you're going. Just keep in mind that every time you press this button, Save Translation and Continue, it makes a separate thing like this. So every one of these are made probably by pressing this one. Or this one, I'm not sure. But this one is the closest to window. So if you press this one, you save and then you exit the translation. But this one keeps you in the window, but it creates a lot of these revisions.
So when we are reviewing a translation, then it should be just in state. We haven't gone further than save translation and continue later, or.
Well, until you're pretty sure that the translation is fit for purpose and it's ready to be committed into the trunk of the archetype, you use one of these. When you're pretty sure that you're done, then you use these, and that makes a task for the editor to go in and have a look and fold it into the trunk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then. It's ready for, what did you say?
Ready for review.
Is it ready for review then, or is it ready for use?
Well, that depends on how you see things. I would actually not use this until you're happy with the translation, whether that's because you've had 3 people had a look over it and say, okay, this is good, or if you've done reviews on it.
Yeah, and those reviews are done after the submit.
Yeah, actually, you do have to commit the translation before you do the review. So that you have to do this first, and then you can do a review, and you can make any changes that the reviewers point out, and then you can do that again. Okay, so that's the translation process, more or less. When you do the reviews, you need to have a specific kind of role in the CKM as a translation editor to be able to run translation reviews. That's something we can give you, but you need to ask for that as well. And you can then initiate translation review rounds for each archetype. And then you can invite the people you'd like to participate, and you can run that through, and you can make any changes, and then you can use this to resubmit it to the editor so they can fold it into the trunk again.
So, this is something that we could use for Swedish translations out of the box. Something that we couldn't do for, I think it was for license reasons or something in the Norwegian one, or that we were in an incubator or something like that.
Well, no, this you could have done this in Norwegian CKM as well, but I'm just unsure when we're starting to talk about several different languages, if it isn't better to do it in the international one, so that all the translations are available in a CKM that's used by more than the Norwegians, basically.
Yes.
So,
And I think the other main reason for another main reason for switching to the international one could be that actually we want our Swedish clinicians to be involved in authoring new archetypes in the international community. So it will just be a detour to go through the Norwegian, and that was probably my bad idea of going through the Norwegian, and you recommended going for the international. I think that's what
the only reason why we have a separate Norwegian CKM is that we need to be able to control the semantics of our archetypes. If we're happy with whatever is decided in international space, we wouldn't have needed a separate CKM. But because Norwegians are weird, we sometimes do things our own way, and then we need to have semantics that don't match international requirements. We've seen that actually the clearest in things like scorings, where Norwegian clinicians have adopted international scoring systems and then subtly changed them without doing any sort of a study or anything like that. They're just, these values could be a little bit different based on my personal experience, and then they just go ahead and do that. And that makes trouble for us trying to standardize these things. So for instance, the Marder's score for depression, and I think a couple of others as well, are different semantically between the Norwegian version of the archetype and the international one. So that's the main reason. No, they're not, and that's why they have separate IDs, and yeah. But you wouldn't want to publish those in the international CKM because they're just not the same thing.
I expect we have the same situation in Sweden because we have lots of similar requests. So you have done a Swedish translation, and the translation itself has led to a modification of the international version or the original.
Yeah.
Yes,
so how are you dealt with that? How are we going to deal with that if we use the international one?
Well, I think we can use the international one to start with, at least now, to just get things up and running. But then, of course, you could use other things than a CKM for special archetypes if you want to. We could use GitHub or things like that until we have some kind of national agreement on if we should have a CKM or not. Or we could possibly make an incubator thing or something like that.
Yeah, and that's the real thing that you want an incubator for, is to upload archetypes that aren't in the CKM already. And for that could be just new concepts, or it could be variations of concepts that are there already, that you don't want to have the exact same semantics for some reason or other. But of course you don't want those alternative versions that are just happen because of translations in the sort of canon of CKM archetypes. You want to keep them separate in the international space, I think.
Yes, so then they would be in a separate Swedish incubator that could be public, but is not expected to be merged into the international stuff.
Yeah.
And the others that actually follow the international standard, we don't have in the incubator. They are in the main branches.
Exactly. And of course, I'm pretty sure you can't run translation reviews either in the incubators. So you definitely can't do content reviews, but I don't think you can do translation reviews either.
But you can reference them to the incubator, as all the architects.
Yes,
you have translated, so that can be helpful to identify them at least.
Yes. So, is there anything else that I should show you?
I guess we would be interested in doing such a review of an international archetype sooner or later and have someone from Sweden lead it. So it could be good to, if it's possible, to have a look at what it looks like when you start a review and what things to think of.
Do we still have running translation review in the Norwegian CKM, or did we stop that? Let's see, I'll have a look. But one other thing I wanted to show you is what happens when you publish a translation. If you have a look at this, at the status page of the archetype, this is, you've got the timeline here, when it was uploaded and the reviews that have taken place, etc. Then you have the content status of the archetype, where you can change that if you want to. And the review rounds that have happened, etc., who's participated. And then you have the different other things. You have the terminology status of SNOMED CT, and if you have other terminologies in the archetype, you would have statuses of those as well, and you can run terminology reviews on the bindings that are in an archetype to have terminologists check if those are the correct ones, if the semantics match. And then you have the different translations. And we don't really use translation reviews in Norwegian, but we consider a translation to be good enough for publishing when it's gone through content review in the Norwegian CKM, where we do the content reviews in Norwegian. So what we can do then is to, and I haven't done it for this one because we haven't been doing it consistently, but I can do it now just to show you. I can change that to completed. So now that gets a tick here. And then if it has changes, I can change it later, etc. Yep. So that's that. Let's see if what was it I was going to, if we have any translation reviews running.
I think there is one on family history somehow. I'm not sure if it's running, but there is an old one, I think.
I think we've closed them all down. I can't see anything other than content here now. Yeah. No, sorry. I don't have any.
We could do that another time, and when we have
Yes.
a Swedish thing that is ready to run.
For sure.
And then we could record that also.
And when you're ready to start running translation reviews, you'll need to talk to us to get the translation editor permissions, etc. as well.
How many people or what type of roles do you think should be involved in a translation in order to make it a good review?
Well, there's of course the translator themselves, and every single person who wants to edit in translation need that translation permission. And of course, then the people who run the reviews need to be a translation editor, and those should be much fewer people, probably just 2 or 3 people per group, or whoever actually does that work for the Swedish language or the Finnish language or whatever. We should probably have them as native speakers of each language. I think is a good idea.
And how do you choose participants in the review?
That's up to the translation editor, the one who starts the review. I can show you what it looks like without actually starting one. So when I initiate the translation review round, I just choose which archetype I want to do it for, and I choose which language. Let's do it for Norwegian. And then I can choose to include all the members of specific projects or incubators, and those could be translators or translation editors or whoever I want who have roles within that those project or incubators. If people have adopted the archetype, I can choose them. And then I can just invite anyone. So if
Can I find all Swedish-speaking members? Or
let's try. If they've actually selected that, we should be able to do that. Yeah. Switch. Yeah, so you have 3 that are actually selected at the Swedish speakers.
And I know there are more users, so
yes.
you probably also check the ones that have country Sweden or something like that.
Yes, that's probably a good idea. So let's try that as well. There should be a thing for that. Actually, there isn't. There's only language. In addition to the...
I think you could sort the list in the normal view according to country.
That's true, yeah. So if we just do the normal view and sort by country, I don't know if it's possible to... No, it's not. It isn't possible to do the filtering, but we can sort it so then we can have a look at who's in Sweden, and that's quite a few more.
would that be a good way of doing it, to find as many Swedish speakers as possible?
Yeah, at the same time, you want to be sort of careful who you invite. Don't invite people who have the have selected not to be invited to translations or reviews. But if they're like this, we usually invite these people even though they haven't actually said if they want to. And then, of course, you have the ones who said, yes, I want to be this way. And those we just invite as much as we like until they say otherwise. So that's how that works, and I'll just stop that. I don't start a review right now. Oh, there. Okay, done. So, any questions or anything else you'd like to see demonstrated?
When the review is done, what happens then when we publish it?
Normally, we, at least for the content, we do an assessment whether we think we need another review round, and that's usually dependent on how big the changes made are. If you change out the entire usage section, for instance, or if you change something that means a semantic change, I would definitely do a new review round. But if there's only minor changes, spelling, etc., then I would probably just say, okay, this is good enough. Most people have said this is okay with minor changes. We can probably coach you a bit on that when you start doing translation reviews, if you're interested.
Good.
Of course, also, we are interested in getting more people into being content editors. If any of you are interested in having a look at that sort of role sometime in the future, it doesn't need to be a lot of work. It could be just working on the archetypes that you're interested in. That's mostly what we do at the moment. But we are looking to increase the number of people who are able to do content reviews. So if that's something you're thinking about, then please tell us, and we'll find a way to make that work.
You don't have to be a clinician in order to do that.
Not necessarily to do the reviews. And normally we're several people going through the reviews anyway. or at least we have several people checking them. So I wouldn't be too worried about that.
It's probably more important to be able to get clinicians to do reviews. So when you start something, it's probably a bit of an admin task, and then persuasion, trying to get people to do it. So it's not necessarily a clinician that has the time to do that. It could be more terminology people that informaticians.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the demo.
You're welcome.
Are there any more questions?
No questions, but thank you for the demo. We will definitely aim to use for every new archetype translation in the future, as the tool seems very good.
That's fantastic. And I think it's for translations, it's a lot better than the archetype editor, definitely.
If we go for using the international CKM now, how do we get the right permissions and stuff?
It would be a good idea just to compile a list of the people who want translation translator, permissions, and send.
I guess we can go for the same list as signed up for the Norwegian. CKM to start with.
We just need to make sure that they're registered in the international one. We might want to give people a day or two to get registered.
So we register ourselves one by one, or?
Yes, mostly, and that's the way we do it.
Yes.
And
because then you can check the right boxes, what you're interested in.
Just let us know when, who and what, and that's for the translation. And when you feel that you want to start looking at the translation reviews, then tell us, and we'll do a quick recap of this, I think, and then give you the rights to do translation reviews.
Yeah, because I think I will start. I would like to start right now to upload the Cambio translations and theater translations.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
And who is you? Who are you talking
about?
Okay, so let's do that. Do you remember what your username is, or do I have to search for you? Is it just Åsa Skagerhult?
I think so. I don't remember. And
when we got, is that correct?
Yeah, that's me.
When we got our CKM, we couldn't put Nordic characters in the username. So that was, let's see, translator. Okay, so that wasn't correct then.
Are you sure that you're registered in the international one or just the Norwegian one? Because now we're in the Åsa. Are you registered in the international one?
No, I haven't registered there.
Okay, so
I should do that first.
Yes, you do have to do that first. So just drop me an email when you've done that, and I'll give you the translator permission right away. And that's the same goes for the rest of you, really.
Could you show us?
Sorry.
I think there's a place where you could request translator permissions.
That is right. Yes. So if you go into a project, yes, most of the common archetypes are in this project, common resources. There are some that are in specific projects, such as medicational labs, but most are in this one. So if you want to start doing generic translations, this is the one to request. And you go open the project, you find it here under projects and incubators, international core resources and common resources. So if you open that project, you get this view here, and you press the project, click the project members icon, and then go on to requests, I think. No, I'm an editor, so I think this is where you go. I can't actually see how it works for normal users. I think this is how it works. But anyway, if you go in here, you'll be able to find a way to request translator permissions. And that's probably the easiest way, because then it's just for me to click OK, and it'll work.
And the project that maybe you said so, but I'm a bit ill, so my brain doesn't work very well today. But which project were we supposed to? Is it this common? It's in common resources that we will work.
That's where most of the archetypes live here. Right. If you look at the specific archetypes like this, you can see which project or incubator owns the archetype by finding this icon here. If it's a project, it looks like this, like a folder with a file in it. And then you can see the selected archetype is currently owned by the Common Resources project. While if I have a look at one that's owned by an incubator, it looks like a bucket and shovel, like you do use in the sandbox. You can say the selected archetype is currently owned by the dentistry incubator. Yeah. So that's the easiest way to find which incubator or project owns a specific archetype.
Okay. Any more questions? If not, then we thank you very much, and perhaps we can get the recording up to the wiki page of Swedish translations.
I'm sure Jon Tore can work something out.
Yeah, I can send it to you at least.
Yeah, then I can upload it. It doesn't matter which way. And then we could everyone, please feel free to edit the wiki page, declaring what you're interested in or things like that, and if you want to be an official contact person and such things. So that we use the wiki page to start with to mark what we want to do in our duocracy, to inform each other. And I think that's it.
Yeah, and Erik, can I call you after this meeting and we'll have a quick talk? Yeah.
We'll do a local thing after this.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, thank you very much, Silja.
Have a nice day, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
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 Bye.